What if you could be taken right off the street outside of your home? No warning and no explanation. In public view, many gather to watch as you are pulled away by strangers, demanding you to not resist into a van while unsure of what's really happening. Hello, my name is Amika Miller, and I am recording this podcast from Westchester University, Pennsylvania, edited by Amira Inslee and written by Madison Staylor. It's April 27th, 2026, and we'll be discussing a rapidly growing problem regarding the expansion of immigration enforcement and detention in the United States, specifically the rise of detention under U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE. This critical human rights issue is simply a topic social workers just have to tune into. The opening might sound like a described kidnapping, right? But for tens of thousands of people across the United States, it's illegal, unjust reality. As of January 2026, nearly 40,000 individuals were placed into ICE detention in a single given month, according to the TREC reports. That's only those that were properly reported and documented. And now, on any given day, between 70,000 and 73,000 individuals are being held in ICE detention centers, reported by the American Immigration Council. That's a massive increase in just 1 year. And it shows the extent of this major shift in federal immigration policy. This is up to an 84% in just one fiscal year. It's important to address that enforcement isn't just happening at the borders. It's happening in everyday spaces, workplaces, neighborhoods, and even private homes. These recent federal policy expansions and additions have succeeded in elevating ICE's authority through the increased collaboration of local law enforcement, leading to broader arrest powers and expedited removal processes. This has been a topic of much criticism, as many point out that this significantly has weakened due processes protections by single handedly permitting warrant less civil arrests, limiting civil representation, and ultimately reducing judicial oversight. And there's something often overlooked. Over 73% of people in ICE detention centers have no record of criminal conviction. Can you imagine that? That's right. Jackie Merlos, a survivor and plaintiff in lawsuit challenging unlawful and ongoing ICE practices related to surveillance and detainment, shared her story with the Center of Human Rights. And I quote, "I feel safe here. I could not have imagined that only a few years later, immigration agents would arrest me while I was at a park with my family. Although I have never committed any crime, they took me and my 4 children to an immigration prison. As the agent was processing us, as my children were sobbing, he said to us, 'Do you know why you're here? Because you're a criminal.' So many people are afraid to speak up. I'm not going to be quiet. I am not a criminal." Jackie's story isn't an isolated tragedy, but a part of a larger pattern. From a social worker lens, this raises a series of ethical concerns and questions. Many vulnerable communities are being placed into systems that are increasingly overcrowded, unresourced, and highly unsafe. Reports have documented deaths in ICE detention centers tied to a lack of medical care and systematic neglect and poor living conditions. This is not an immigration issue, okay, listeners? This is a human rights and social injustice issue. In various communications with our community advocates here in Chester County, a highlighted takeaway from the issue is not simply the fear it brings, but rather than uncertainty. Uncertainty in regards to if it's safe to go to work, whether a family member will come home today, or simply just on any day, not at all. What if someone is detained without access to legal support and representation? What then? We are here to say this isn't an isolated experience, and you are heard. This is a pattern created by policy decisions, curated to determine the separation between who is protected and who is deemed vulnerable. Now, if you're still with me, you probably are wondering where we go from here. We must turn our concern into concrete action. That's where we go from here. Awareness alone isn't going to address the issue or change the policies responsible for the unjust and inhumane treatment under the rule of ICE. We need to ultimately shift away from large scale detention and toward more humane community oriented alternatives. I bet you're asking, how do we do that? Well, this means ensuring access to legal representation, strengthening due processes, protections, and amplifying accountability towards the detention conditions. As social workers and our communities will play a significant role in motivating this plan to action. How do we do that? Well, we will do this by strategic advocacy practices and community engagement. We hope to use collective efforts to pick up momentum for policy reform. We identified that there are three pillars that can support advocacy efforts, which are legislation, engagement, and partnership building, data driven advocacy, and public education and media outreach. As social workers obligated to promote social injustice, we aim to influence federal policymakers, specifically members of Congress and executive officials who have direct authority over immigration laws and funding that can enact this change. These agencies include, but are not limited to, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Department and Department of Homeland Security. Both agencies are ultimately responsible for the conduct practices within the detention centers. By presenting evidence based policies and testimonials, we push for informed legislation that prioritizes human rights. Collaboration also helps to increase impact. Through connecting with organizations like CHESCO, Migrant Ministries, we hope to unify our voices and enhance our collective efforts to ensure the safety and security of immigrants here in Chester County. Coalition based advocacy allows us to combine resources, knowledge, and boost public awareness to strengthen our reach. You may now be asking yourself, where do you fit into this strategic plan? And that's okay. But policy change begins when communities band together. We invite you to become advocates yourself, whether by contacting representatives, joining local coalitions, or sharing credible information across platforms. We need federal policymakers, members of Congress, and leaders within the Department of Homeland Security to reduce reliance on detentions and expand access to such legal protections and humane standards promised by the ethical codes subjected towards such existing facilities. You can help by being a part of this change. Contact your representatives. Support local advocacy organizations. Share this information depicting an accurate reality of current detention conditions. We have included in the description of this uploaded podcast an outline letter template you can use to send to your local representation demanding policy reform for ICE detention centers. Additionally, a website will be linked for you to search who your local representative is. Please feel free to leave a comment sharing resources from your own communities and ways to outreach to increase support on this initiative. Remember, this issue doesn't just reflect how individuals are detained, but the systems and treatments we are willing to accept. Change starts when we enforce it. Remember that, guys. And thank you.